a playlist original.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster. My name is Gaius, and this week I'm only joined with one person.
Hi, it's Brittany. I made it to the podcast today, unlike our third.
Our third is, we think, sleeping. We did a bonus episode this week on Monday. We were going to do 2 yesterday, but I was coming off of a big weekend. Everyone was kind of tired. So we agreed to do it today. And then Owen took a cat nap that has turned into a deep sleep. So, but that's the deal. Like, there's 3 of us. So
that's showbiz, babe.
That's what happens. So the show must go on, even with 2 of us. But he'll be here in spirit, and we'll occasionally bring him up, just to be funny. To be fair, though, apparently he did try to prep because we have some Sex in the City talk later. And he asked his girlfriend some stuff about it so he'd be ready. So he had every intention of being here. Sometimes, we got other jobs and got to get our sleep. So
yeah, sleep is very important. It's okay.
No harm, no foul.
He's on the bonus episode though, so tune in for that.
Yeah, he is on that. So you don't really lose him. You only lose him here. But you'll hear his beautiful voice again soon. So Brittany, what did you do this weekend? Check out anything?
I mean, I think you had a bigger weekend than I did. I think you should go and talk about your big fun weekend in Vegas.
So yeah, I got it was kind of a last minute thing with Joe Blow. First of all, I was asked on Tuesday if I would be willing to travel, because I guess there's certain people on the team that are still afraid to travel because of COVID and stuff. And I was like, yeah, sure, I would love to travel. And they were like, okay. So then they came back the next day. They're like, hey, this is completely unrelated to what we talked about on Tuesday. But there's this thing in Vegas at the Wynn for the Yellowstone prequel series that's coming out called 1883. They're doing a big red carpet premiere event for them. They're going to screen the first 2 episodes. Do you want to go? Everything's paid for. We'll take care of the room, or they're taking care of the room. All you're gonna have a per diem. It's a free weekend in Vegas. Do you want to go? And I was like, sure, I'll go. But a lot of these things come together very last minute. So I didn't really get my final travel arrangements until the day before, and it was late the day before. To the point where I was like, are we sure we're doing this? I don't know if I'm gonna go. But it all came together, and it was a really cool, fun weekend. It's the first thing that they've done kind of with a Hollywood premiere and stuff in Vegas since everything shut down. So they were happy to invite the press back, and of course the talent back, to premiere something like this. So I have to be real. I haven't watched Yellowstone before. I know
I haven't either.
I know it's hugely popular. My mom loves it. I know about, from writing about it for the website, that its ratings have gone up with each season. So that's in a big way. So I guess that's a good sign that the show is really good. The prequel is set, as the title says, in 1883, and it follows the early kind of life of the Dutton family, which is on the original show. And on the show,
it has Tim McGraw and Faith Hill.
Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, Sam Elliott, the man, the myth, the legend.
Oh yeah,
best voice in Hollywood, other than Morgan Freeman, I guess. So they did this big kind of thing, kind of unveiling of the show, and there was a lot of press stuff on Friday. We had a big dinner to kind of get to know each other, which was really cool. So I got a lot of connections through that, and didn't waste any time just throwing our podcast out there, because it's all about who and promotions and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it was cool though, because the press people were all really cool. They gave a lot of advice on. This was my first red carpet. I've never done one before, and I was like, well, what do you do? How do you kind of go about doing it? And she's like, most press people are polite when you're on the line. They'll let you get in your space, but if it's a really famous person, sometimes they'll cheat their way in, throw in a little shoulder to block,
throw some bows at you
to make sure that they get in, to get the questions in. But yeah, for the most part, everyone was really cool, and they all very supportive. And once we got to the actual like red carpet thing, it's a little nerve wracking because there's like so much going on, and then there's a lot of pivoting going on too, where they're like, okay, like you're standing here, we have you here. And then a girl came up to me and she's like, no, like people supposed to be there, like let's put you here. And then they're like, no, we're sorry. Like extra is gonna be here, so let's move you down here. And I was like, all right, well, I'm just happy to be here. Just like throw me wherever you want to throw me. So like once we got situated with our spots, there's like a lot of waiting. And I didn't know how this was with red carpets, but a lot of the people that work the event, they have friends that they invite, and they kind of get to walk the carpet and take pictures before the celebrities get there, because like there's no one on the carpet, and they get to pretend like they're the talent for a little bit. So there were all these friends of employees who were taking, like all the girls were like throwing their hair back and like doing the standard like red carpet pose with their boyfriends. Some of the boyfriends looked like they wanted to be there, others did not. Clearly they were just there, just their girlfriends made them go. But once it got started, it was really cool. Like they try to make it really organized, where they start with like more supporting people first, like supporting cast. Like you might not know who they are. We had like a printout with their pictures and names, even though I did watch the first 2 episodes that they sent me in my room actually. They're all glammed up and they don't look like they do in the show, because like they're playing like cowboys, and there's like immigrants on the show too, and they're all basically rolling around the dirt on the show, so they definitely don't look like Hollywood ready. And so I was like, who is this? So we all of us were like looking through the paper, unless it wasn't Sam Elliott, Tim McGraw, Faith Hill. I had to look at the paper to kind of see who everyone was.
I saw a clip online, and even Tim McGraw didn't, because he wasn't wearing his cowboy hat, so he didn't even look recognizable really.
Yeah. So it was kind of cool. Like I want to say this, so there was a situation we all had to get like rapid COVID tested in order to go. When I was in line, I was talking to another press person, and they were like, oh, like, have you been here before? Like, have you done a red carpet before? I was like, no, it's my first time. Like, do you have any advice? Like all this other stuff. There's someone kind of behind me listening, and he was like, oh, you'll do fine. And I was like, oh, thank you. And then I was like, turned back to talk to who I was talking to. Fast forward to the red carpet. That guy that was in line with me was this guy named Eric Nelson, who's on the show. He's like one of the main characters on the show. So when he got to me and I was talking to him, like went through all my spiel. At the end of it, he was like, I don't know if you remember, but I was in your COVID line and you said like this was your first like red carpet. I just want to say that you're doing a really good job. And I thought that was cool that you even took the time to like say and do that.
That's awesome. You had like a really good celebrity moment, which like doesn't happen often.
Doesn't happen all the time. So like the red carpet thing was cool. Like, once like really important people started to come, like Billy Bob Thornton and Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, it became harder to keep the line organized. So like you would hope you were going to get a question with them, but then they had like an official like 1883 interview girl there, and they needed to talk to them first. And of course, like extras, like I got priority. And if it was like on TV, they got priority. So they were like shuffling them around and all that stuff. So I didn't get to talk to Tim McGraw or Faith Hill until the next day when we did the roundtable press thing. So it was cool. I got to talk to them at all. But I will say,
that's awesome.
We'll say that Faith Hill, even though she couldn't get to all of us on the line, she was like, oh, is there any way we can? And then they were like, no, we got to get you seated for the screening and all that stuff. And she was like, oh, shoot. Like, she's like, are you sure? And she was really trying to go back to see if she can give everyone the time that they wanted. But they were like, no, we got to get you in. And she did the same thing during the roundtable. She was like, did everyone get a chance to like get a question in? She's like, because like, I want to make sure everyone gets a chance. And you could tell her people were like, well, yeah, well, we got to keep it moving. And she's like, no, it's not. So she
seems like a really down to earth. They both seem pretty down to earth. Like
they both seem like they were
caring people.
Cool. Like I asked him, since they collaborated in music, of course, before, they've never really done this before. And I was wondering if the process was any different. And he was just saying that he doesn't think he could have done the show with anyone else. Like they've been asked to do things before. Like, I guess like, I didn't even know this. Faith Hill's done 2 movies. I didn't know this. But he said they've been asked to do things all the time. And like, they always like, it's not the right project. She said the same thing. Like when I talked to her about, like, I want to know who got approached first, if they got approached together or if he got approached first, and she was like, no, it was him because he already had a relationship with Taylor Sheridan, who created it, and then Tim was like, hey, he kind of wants you for this. And then she said she was embarrassed because she was like, well, can I read it first? And she was like, wait, why did I say that? It's he created Yellowstone. He directed like Wind River. He's like a really talented, like, why would I ask, like, who can I read it first?
Mhm.
But she said that it was like the roles are very emotionally taxing. And she's just happy that she did get to do it with him because it made it a lot easier for her to go to these places and not feel insecure about going to those places, which I thought was kind of interesting to hear. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was a fun weekend. It was a mix of work and play, and I had to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to go with you. But I had a work thing as well. But yeah, it looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I loved it. It was a good time, and I convinced one friend from LA to come, and he actually flew out, which made it a lot easier. The thing is, like, I could have hung out with press people that whole weekend and would have been fine, but it was nice to have someone there, so I wasn't like
Mhm.
just hanging out in my room all day when I wasn't working. But yeah, it was a fun experience, and I can't wait to do it again. It was
Did
now
you
that
win any money? Did you gamble at all?
so I played a slot machine, won $200,
Oh,
then went another slot machine. I put in a 20 and won 150. And then I got a little tipsy and then lost that 150.
oh no.
But I kept the 200 that I got. So it's not much, but 200 I didn't have.
Hey, you did Vegas right.
I tried. I
Sounds like.
did my best. So what about you? What did you do?
So I worked I didn't really work an event. I had to do something similar to what you did, but it was on the other side of it. I work in post production and I work in events and premieres.
Nice.
So I got a chance to actually participate in the event of Tender Bar that was premiering at the Chinese Theater on Sunday. So I got to go down there and do a little bit of work in prep, and it was really cool. I had never been to that theater before. I'm not an LA local. It was a dream of mine to go to that theater, and it was crazy because this area in front of the Chinese theater is closed down while they're setting up for like the red carpet and everything. And me getting the opportunity to like sneak in past the security guard,
Yeah.
allowed, but like sneak in past the security guard was so crazy. People are outside taking pictures of it, and I'm wearing sunglasses and a mask. So people are like, who's that person going through? Yeah, but it was really cool. I got to preview the movie. I've seen it a couple of times, and I'm really excited for everyone to get a chance to see it. I think it's a beautiful story. It's a true story based on a memoir. So if you get a chance, you should definitely see it. It's really good. Ben Affleck's in it. George Clooney directed it. There's a young boy in it. His name's Daniel Rieri, I think. It's his first debut. So he's incredible in it. He's like 7 or 8. So that was really cool to be able to get a chance to work on that.
Is the other guy Ty Sheridan? Is that who
Ty Sheridan, yeah.
he
He plays like the older version of the little kid.
Okay, yeah, I only know him from the X-Men movies. I'm sure he's done other better things.
Yeah, I actually got to go to like a event party like maybe like a month or two ago, and they were both there at this after party, and they were like sitting on the couch next to each other and like hanging out like it was like they were brothers.
Yeah.
And it was just like a cute moment. They were just bros hanging out, this like 8-year-old, and then like I think Ty Sheridan's like 25 or something.
Yeah.
So it was nice. It looked like he was kind of taking him under his wing, and
That's cool.
I know Hollywood's kind of scary when you're that young, so it was really cute.
Yeah. Speaking of being that young, there's a little kid on the 1883, and they had him walk the red carpet, and like, I mean, he was in his little like green like green and black pinstripe suit, and it was adorable. But you can tell that it was just like like his parents were behind him, but it was like overwhelming. And like the girl who was doing like the official 1883 like kind of press interviews for them, like that was gonna go like probably the most of the people in Vegas. She was very good, but she was like, one of those intense, like extra like commentators, like very in your face. And she was trying to get on his level. She like got down on her knees and like was trying to interview him. And she was asking him questions, and he was just kind of like, I don't. And he would look at his parents, and
Um,
like, so I was like, like it made me think because like this girl next to me was like, oh, why would they let him do that? He's just so young. Like, yeah, he can be on it and like maybe stop for pictures, but to have him like throw him out there to be like interviewed as himself might be a little different from when he's on set, like acting.
yeah.
So I thought it seemed like a little overwhelming for him, but I mean,
Oh, I'm sure it is.
I was able to get some pictures of him, and like he smiled and he was nice. I think he would rather do that than kind of be put on the spot and ask like questions by some like big adults,
Yeah, Daniel, there was a Q&A after at the Chinese theater, and Daniel was up there with, sitting next to Ben Affleck. Like, can you imagine? Like, that's so insane.
Was J-Lo there?
She was.
You're like showing that support. Good for her.
Yeah, she was. I didn't go to the actual premiere, but she was at the other premiere that I did go to at the DGA, and then she was also there last night. I saw some red carpet pictures, but I did not attend the actual premiere. But if I had, I would have been just like those people that you were talking about, going up down the red carpet before the celebrities.
Taking like your
Oh, I would have for sure done a hair flip.
Hair flip. It's cool because I do want to see this movie, and like I feel like Ben Affleck's kind of having this like second. I don't want to say second coming. I guess he's had a second coming already. It's like this new wave of his career is like really good. It seems like,
yeah, he's nominated. We'll talk about this later, but he did get nominated for, I think, a Golden Globe for a supporting actor for this role. So I mean, he's a recovering alcoholic, and in the movie, he kind of plays a guy who runs a bar. So
yeah, and he kind of dabbled in that last year when he did like the way back when he was the basketball player or basketball coach who was like alcoholism. So it seemed like he's becoming more comfortable in his like skin as like who he was and who he is now. It's kind of cool.
And I think he's friends with George Clooney too, so that might have added some good qualities to the movie as well. Just being directed by a friend of yours maybe would help.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. And I also wonder too, like when you're, because Ben Affleck is an actor who also directs, so I just wonder kind of wonder what that collaborative process is like for two people who do both things like in their profession. But I'm sure Ben Affleck respects him as a. Actually, I actually heard him. I was watching Extra and they were interviewing him, and basically he said that George Clooney is like almost like another actor on this. That's how keen his directing was. Like he fit like his presence was kind of always there, basically.
Yeah, he was very involved in the process of the directing and editing and everything. So,
well, I am down for the Ben Affleck Renaissance.
Me too.
Everyone deserves one. Like I was down for when the John Wick movies were coming out and we had the Keanu-sans and we started being in stuff again. Like, some certain people I think deserve like that shot. And I think like Ben Affleck, his career goes in waves where it's like, oh, like we take him seriously, like, oh, we don't really take him seriously, and like, oh, he's directing now, we take him seriously. And it's like a kind of a it's and then like I think his personal life kind of overshadows some of his acting stuff, which is
he made a joke on the red carpet about J-Lo. Well, I guess not about J-Lo. Someone was like, oh, you're with your girl Jen, and he's like, yeah, I think it's really important that Jen Sulky, the head of Prime Video, comes to my premiere.
And they're like, oh, that was cute.
He like dodged that question so hard.
I mean, I wish that's funny that he would be like that. I think it's funny that they like dodge questions like that, but they clearly want to be seen together. Like they sat courtside at a basketball game recently, and I think they put them on the kiss cam too. And I don't know if they like went for it. I think they were kind of like, oh, whatever. No, we don't want to be seen. Like focus on the game. I guess you want to be seen.
Yeah, they want to be
seen even more now than they did when they first did this run through on their relationship.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
But it's funny because they said like they were so like overwhelmed. Like that's why they didn't work out the first time, because there was so much attention on them and they didn't like it.
Yeah.
But now they were like, maybe because they're older, they're like, okay, like throw all the attention on us.
Yeah. Another thing that I watched of yours this weekend was your interview with Isla Fisher. Speaking of hot couples, and one of the longest running Hollywood couples.
Yeah.
She is married to Borat.
Yeah, which is Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was sweet to talk to. I only got like 5 minutes with her. Because that's the thing when you do these, like you're hoping for a long one. Well, not all the time. So most of the time, most of the time you're hoping for a long one. But she was really cool. I didn't get any specifics. They usually send stuff like, "Hey, don't talk about this, don't talk about that." But I wanted to read other interviews with her before I did it. And what I found was that since she was being interviewed for an animated movie called Back to the Outback, that's what I was talking to her about. And at first, I was going to ask her questions about, because she has kids. I was going to ask her stuff about that within the movie. But then I read an interview where she talks about she likes to keep her kids pretty private. And so I kind of pivoted off of that a little bit. I did kind of, since it is a animated movie that takes place in Australia and she has such close ties there and she's living there now. She moved her family there. She didn't want to raise her kids in LA. I basically wanted to know, I asked her like, is how important it is to you to have a movie that has like Australia in its DNA, and what would that be like to share it with your family? I didn't say your kids. I said family. And she responded to that well. And she was just like, she was super adorable. Like they sent me her character as a stuffed animal of her character. She plays Maddie the snake, and they sent that to me. And I had that with me. I showed her. I was like, "Oh, I have like a friend here. Like, do you want to see?" And she
That was really cute.
She was like, "I don't even have that. Like, why don't I have that?" And but no, she was just really nice. And someone messaged me. They're like, "Why didn't you ask her about Wedding Crashers?" I felt inappropriate about asking about the sequel, only because it was an interview during a movie
About a kids movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we were rocking an interview for a PG-13, even I probably would have asked her. And like I said, they didn't tell me I couldn't do it. I just thought it would have been in poor taste if I did.
I think you did a really good job. It sounds like you really did your research, and I think that's what makes you a good interviewer, is that you do your research on them and you come in like fully prepared, knowing what you can and can't talk about. Not just what they want you to talk about or not want you to talk about, but in past interviews, like you said, where she keeps her kids private,
Right.
even though she didn't tell you that kids were off limits, you knew that boundary. So I think that's really awesome that you did that.
Yeah, and you know, she was, you know, sometimes these things, I mean, most of them are always pretty interested, even though I know they've been doing them all day, and like it's like who knows what number I am once they get to me. But she seemed pretty engaging like the entire
She
time.
did. She seemed really engaging with your interview.
She
Really
was,
lively.
yeah, she was sweet. Like people were asking me like, you know, what it was like, and like people that watched it, like she's as sweet as you probably think she is. And I think she might be just naturally hilarious too. Like, I mean, like I kind of felt that a little bit while talking to her. And I also thought it was cool that she was honest about, you know, I was asking her like, since it was close to Australia, like, is that what made you want to do it? And she said that she did this during kind of like the start of like the pandemic, so during lockdown. So she was homesick and she really wanted to do something that was kind of close to her heart, and like where she, you know, grew up there. She was like, since she was 6 years old, that's where she had lived, you know, growing up. So it was important for her to do it. And I think like, you know, playing into that, just reading that other interview where she talked about wanting to get out of LA, she was like, you know, I kind of like, we talked about it with her husband, like, I don't want to raise our kids here. Like, you know, a lot of people feel that way about,
a lot of people felt that way after COVID.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that, you know, it's not like she's still going to be getting work. She just doesn't want to like kind of have home base here. And I respect that.
And those animated movies pay really well, and you don't really have to do a whole lot of moving around for it.
Yeah,
So
sometimes you don't even have to leave your house. Sometimes
that's what I mean. She can just chill at home.
Like, I've heard like certain people who've said like they've come and like built like a mini little studio in their home so they can just record.
Will Arnett he does a lot of voice acting, so he has a full studio in his home.
Yeah. That's like the people that are on The Simpsons, like they're rich and no one really knows what they look like or who they are. They can run around like with like they don't know, yeah. And they're like,
They could just run around naked for all we know.
I know, right? And they're some of the highest paid people working in the business. So it's like, and
Right.
like I think because I've seen her a lot in other interviews, I think I can point out the girl who does Bart's voice, and she does other voices on the show, or I should say woman. But like, there's like, I would recognize her maybe, but the rest of them. Oh, and then I guess Harry Shearer because he does the voice of Mr. Burns, and he's I know
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, the rest of them like doing voiceover work seems like a sweet job. Like, I interviewed Nick Kroll one time, and with like he did for Addams Family too, and like they all kind of have that same response. Like it's just like it's fun work, and they love doing voiceovers and stuff. But it's just easy when it's like these are the roles you take when you don't want to risk going on set during the heart of the pandemic, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Which is kind of cool. But yeah, that was fun. And then like combined with that experience, kind of with the experience of doing like the premiere and then interviewing her, it's been a good couple of weeks with this stuff. And like I feel like the more I do it, I think the more I do it, the more I want to do it in person. But I know that it's hard, like between the pandemic and I think celebrities, even if they don't even care about that anymore, they're just like, I don't want to go to like a studio and sit there for like several hours and do this in person. I'd rather just have a hair and makeup squad come to my house and our hotel room.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, I mean, Tender Bar, I've coordinated a lot of premieres within the past few months for Amazon, but Tender Bar was the first one in person that I did. So I'm hoping there's more. I'm hoping that there's more in person, but yeah, you're right. A lot of people don't want to attend these things.
Yeah.
They want to stay home.
They wanted to stay home. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I could feel them on that. It was funny because the Yellowstone people, because they're still shooting, and like everyone that I talked to was just like, it's so surreal being in Las Vegas at this like lavish like red carpet thing, and they're like the day before we were in Montana, like in our own little bubble shooting this show still, and like it just feels weird to just be like for the girls like in the dress, and then like the guys like getting all suited up. They're like it just doesn't feel normal right now. It just feels like I should still be in my cowboy hat and like someone throwing mud on me. Like, where's the mud?
Yeah.
But I'm sure they were happy to like kind of be able to get. I will say it was the night. So everything was outside. It was 38 degrees in Vegas during this, and every single girl, I felt so bad. They all looked amazing, but they were cold. Like there was one.
Oh, I'm sure.
This one girl named Graciela, who plays Naomi on the show. By the time she got to me, she was just like, I was like, oh God, what's wrong? She's like, it's not you. She's like, it is not you at all. She's like, I am just so cold.
Just really cold.
Yeah, and she's like, all right, let's. And she like brushed it off. She's like, all right, let's go. She's like, I'm ready for you. But yeah, it was bone chillingly cold in Vegas this weekend. It was not the typical weekend you would imagine when you go to Vegas, because it's like
no.
Of course. So what else should we jump into?
So speaking of Tender Bar and Amazon, I know a big weekend in the box office is coming up, but Being the Ricardos is also coming out, which I have gotten the chance to watch, and it was good. It was good.
Whenever
it wasn't my favorite Aaron Sorkin movie.
Extended like good. It's usually
It was good. It wasn't my favorite Aaron Sorkin movie, but it is getting a lot of nominations, and it's I think it's going to be nominated a lot for a bunch of awards this year, or I guess next year, nominated this year for next year. And yeah, that one's coming out on Friday as well. So everyone go see that one.
Yeah, I wanted to pull up because this guy who reviewed it, I wanted to read what he said about Nicole Kidman really quick, because like she's getting, I think more so than Javier Bardem, she's getting a lot of the awards attention for this, and a lot of people are saying, I've read reviews that are like she totally disappears into the role, and I've read this one, which I kind of trust a little bit, and this is just me basing it on the trailer, but I wanted to, let me see, hold on. Here it is. It says that I've I'm on the fence about Nicole Kidman. She does an excellent vocal impersonation, and there are times, especially when the camera doesn't opt for a close up, when she pulls it off. But the more Sorkin zooms in, the more apparent it becomes that this is not Lucille Ball, and this is not the Lucy that I know too well, because this guy's a big I Love Lucy fan, and they kind of took him out of it a little bit. She, like, just from the trailers I've seen, she doesn't look like her. I mean, I guess there's a certain
I mean,
she might
I mean, I think it gets to a certain extent. Well, it's like, I mean, Jennifer Hudson doesn't look like Aretha Franklin either.
right.
And that's not the main purpose of the movie. And I think if people harp on the way it looks too much, it becomes more of a shallow point of view.
Right.
I don't think that is, especially from a film critic perspective, I don't think that you should focus on the look of how people look in the movie. I mean, it's more about the character, and if they portray the person's personality and their dialect and everything else. And it's not just about their face looking exactly, because if you want someone that looks like Lucille Ball, you're going to have to get her daughter in there or something,
Right.
you know?
Well, I know a lot of people jokingly had talked about like Deborah Messing, right? Because they have like similar look, a similar-ish look, and then like Deborah Messing, of course, I think kind of like her comedic style, she clearly admires Lucille Ball, and like, a lot of people have talked about that. I don't think that would have been
Yeah.
not to take anything away from Deborah
But
Messing.
the people don't get to do the casting. So unfortunately that didn't work out.
And I agree with what you said. Angela Bassett didn't look like Tina Turner, and she didn't like what stuff got to do with it. She embodied her presence and her essence and all that. I would even say that Jennifer Lopez didn't look 100% like Selena either.
Yeah.
It's more about the kind of the work they put into like their energy almost. And I would say in both of those movies I just mentioned that those two actresses actually captured their performance energy perfectly. They just didn't totally 100% look like them. I think if you're like this guy clearly is a big I Love Lucy fan, I can see maybe why he'd be like, well, he didn't want to see Nicole Kidman. He wanted to see Lucille Ball, I guess, right? Wanted her to like disappear into the role. And he actually said there were moments where she did, but he's like, sometimes Sorkin just gets too close, and it's like, all right, now I know it's Nicole Kidman. And
right.
We can talk. We're going to talk about this in a bit with the nominations and stuff. Like, they're listing her as like a front runner, one of them, but that race is clearly tight. Like it seems like it's coming down to people like her, and then Kristen Stewart for Spencer. Lady Gaga is also getting a lot for like House of Gucci. And then there's all these like wild cards too. There's like Olivia Colman in The Lost Daughter, which is like an indie film that's getting a lot of attention.
Elena Heim,
like, if she can kind of
Licorice Pizza.
Yeah, if she can sneak in, because like they're selling Licorice Pizza as like a comedy, like dramedy kind of thing. If she could sneak in, that would be kind of an upset and might knock certain people out. Same thing with Rachel Zegler, who's in West Side Story. Like, she's getting a lot of attention, and she could be a wild card too. It'll just be interesting because, like, Nicole Kidman's been in this position before where she's been the front runner. I remember the year she got nominated for Moulin Rouge. That's a great performance from her, but it was also the same year that Halle Berry was rocking Monsters Ball. And I don't know if you remember. You have to look this up on YouTube one time, but
when Halle Berry won, I used to watch that over and over again.
Halle Berry
won,
but then they cut to Nicole Kidman, and I don't know if she was just like focused on her speech, but there's some minor stink eye. I think she felt like she was going to win. There wasn't like any like, oh, I'm so happy for her. And you know what? That part of her personality has changed a lot in recent years. Like, Nicole Kidman seems very much more like loose and just happy to be doing like the work, and like, she loves all the opportunities that she's gotten, like with some of her other like, she's one of those people who's producing her own stuff. And she followed that same motif, like her and Reese Witherspoon when they worked on Big Little Lies together. Like, they agreed, like, if the only way to generate these roles for us is that we have to be the ones in charge. Like, we have to be the ones that are like, writing the checks and doing all this stuff. Like, that's how it is. And like that, it's kind of gone down that path in the last few years, which has kind of been nice to see, that she has like all these some of the layers, like as an actress, as a businesswoman, the things that she wants to accomplish with her career.
I think that, and she also did Bewitched too. And this movie did remind me a little bit of Bewitched, where it had that little bit of like Nicole Kidman being like a silly, goofy character, but it was like not her I mean, it was the way she was being acted,
Right.
the way she was portraying these other people. I mean, I think she killed it. I think Javier Bardem also killed it. It's a really good movie. J.K. Simmons is in it. He's great.
Yeah, he got a Critics' Choice nomination too. Oh my God, you know who else did though? We'll talk about this. Jared Leto got one too.
Yeah, whatever. But I wanted to say that, I mean, big directors, we kind of talked about this last week, like Aaron Sorkin.
Mhm.
Obviously his body of work is going to be nominated. Paul Thomas Anderson is always going to be nominated. Like Steven Spielberg is always going to be nominated for his body of work. It's like it doesn't really matter what they do as long as they do something, and then it'll show up in the award season.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, like, they want, I mean, this happens to be a year too where all these guys, some of it because these movies are already planned to come out this year, and others because their movies got pushed from last year because of the pandemic. Now we have this is really a race this year where like it's a lot of big name directors going for, with Best Picture and Best Director. There are
A
some
lot of white guys, a lot of old white men fighting each other for these awards.
a lot of old white men, which is typically how these things go, unfortunately. My thing is like if the work's good, like nominate the work. I'm all for that. I I haven't seen like Licorice Pizza yet, and I'm sure I've gone on Twitter and there's certain people that feel certain ways about it. Like there's a guy on Twitter that like rips it apart.
I've seen some pretty bad reviews about it from women.
Yeah, he was one of those people that pointed that out, and he kind of was like, if you kind of ignore that, then you're a part of the problem. I was like, oh, is it that like serious? But
I think it's Gen X that isn't liking this movie, because I'm seeing a lot of stuff on TikTok about dissecting this movie apart, and it's a lot of people that I see dissecting Licorice Pizza apart are the younger generation that are like young filmmakers seeing these movies for the first time, and they're seeing this movie and they're like, this is a little questionable, some of the material that's in here, but I would like to see it and give it a chance.
No, I do too. And like, I've like he is he's a great director. I mean, I can't think of any one of his movies I haven't liked. Like Magnolia is one of my favorite movies, and so is Boogie Nights. Like he's I think we mentioned this before. He's like one of those like marquee directors where a lot of people will see his name above a movie and they're like, okay, I want to go see that. And, and he also is one of those people that takes his time in between projects. He's not cranking them out like some sort of other people. So that kind of helps building anticipation for his whatever project he's working on next.
And his usage of Philip Seymour Hoffman's son in this movie is significant just because he was close with him, and I think that's a pretty powerful move. I'm looking forward to seeing his acting abilities. I know he's young, so he's got a lot of potential, I'm sure.
Yeah, a lot to live up to too. I mean, that was a huge, I mean, probably one of the best character actors in the business at the time, right? Like he I look at some of Philip Seymour Hoffman's stuff and I almost kind of forget that he's not with us anymore, because like there's like he was in so many movies that during a specific period of time where he just was cranking them out, and it was like great performance after great performance after.
I mean, Along Came Polly will always be one of my favorite movies with him.
Oh yeah, he was in that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he is so funny in it.
And that was the cool thing too, is that he was this like kind of like prestige actor too. Like I wanted to like he could be in like Doubt or Capote, and then he can also be in Along Came Polly. He was in Mission Impossible 3.
And he acted the shit out of that movie.
Yeah. So I think like he certainly had a sense of humor too. So that's good to hear too as well.
Yeah.
Bringing up we get closer to the award stuff. We brought up West Side Story when the early reviews came out, and thankfully like those early reviews still stood, right? It still has like a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. Reviews are great. It opened over the weekend, and even though it opened at number 1, it only grossed $10.6 million, which I think anyone ready to write that headline was like, I didn't write that headline like that because I feel bad being like Spielberg bombs. I didn't want to write it like that, but a lot of people did. Like they went in for the jugular with it. Um,
I mean,
there's a
he
lot.
did.
He did
That's
bomb. Yeah, I mean, here's some things I didn't know about the movie before I saw the box office when we were getting the numbers. Um, it's cost over $100 million to make it. That's all production, I think, because there's no big name stars in it, so they didn't have to pay like a lot of the stars a lot of money. So this was just like Spielberg,
and that again just shows a white man's power in this world, is that he can rack up a bill for $100 million and still only make 10 million. And you know what? He's still going to go on and make movies after this. People are still going to give him $100 million again.
Yeah, I agree, and because that's a good thing to kind of point out because, and I guess because he's like a well established, he's one of the best directors in the business, right? They can afford to like if they have a bomb, a studio's not going to be like, oh, we're not going to give this to you again. If you're an up and coming director, let's say you have one hit and it was a huge hit, right? And then you come out with your second movie and it totally bombs, it's hard for you to get that amount of money again for your third, even
Yeah.
though you gave like the studio like a $200 million hit your first time.
Yeah.
For them, it's not like, oh, like maybe that second time, maybe let's see what didn't work out. Like we'll try this again. It's like, no, I'm trying to think of a lot of first time directors. It's not always necessarily about the money either, but sometimes it's like this is not like the best example, but like Richard Kelly, who directed Donnie Darko, a lot of people love that movie. His second movie didn't live up to that, and then he kind of got they kind of like pushed him aside. Um, and it's
Yeah, I
unfortunate.
think we see that a lot in Hollywood. And I think we don't know any names off the top of our head right now because of that reason, where they had one successful movie and then we don't hear about them ever again.
Right.
Um, but like someone like Spielberg, I mean, he's gonna keep making movies, and he could have another bomb.
Right.
But I mean, Adam Sandler has bombed many movies, and
They still give him.
he's still out here making movies. It's like
He did.
it's so
He figured
crazy.
out a reach around on that because he stopped
He
releasing.
doesn't necessarily direct anymore.
Yeah, and he stopped like going the theatrical route and like got into that big Netflix deal, and his movies work there. Like they're highly successful there. Like we've talked about before how streamers don't want to like give their numbers away, but Netflix, when they want to brag, they will brag about how well the Adam Sandler movies do on their platform.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I kind of want to break down some of the main reasons why certain people are saying that West Side Story didn't open well. And I'll start with like the first obvious one is it's catered to an older audience, right? And this has been a big deal all year with like older skewing movies aren't doing that well at the box office because like older people are still leery about going to the movies during the pandemic. They just are. Like a lot of movies that are skewing younger are opening well and making a lot of money. Like you can look at Free Guy, you can look at Venom, Let There Be Carnage, you can look at even Halloween Kills. Like all these like movies that are aimed at younger people are doing fine because like a younger audience is like, hey, I'm cool with going. Like, give us more movies. House of Gucci kind of like bucked that trend, but I think that had a lot to do with I give a lot of that credit to Lady Gaga, who has a fan base that's huge. And it opened like that was like I said, that was the best like movie that was aimed like at adults, like an opening in 2 years. That's how bad it's been for adult skewing movies at the box office. So that was one of the reasons.
It might have to do with like the fact that the adults now are our generation.
Right.
We're the adults now. And I don't know if we're the audience for West Side Story as opposed to our parents' audience. It's not really it's like the senior class now. Like our parents are now the older generation that aren't necessarily going to the movies as much as people our age are. And Gen X is going to the movies, and they're excited to see Spider-Man this weekend. I don't know if they're excited to see Tender Bar this weekend. So yeah, I don't know if Gen X is going to want to see West Side Story. They probably aren't too familiar with the original story. They don't really care that it's a remake.
Yeah. it's going to be hard for a movie like that to break out outside of an audience that knows it well.
Mhm.
Even with a name like Spielberg attached to it, I think the thinking that kind of went into this is that even if you aren't familiar with it, you're familiar with him, and that would be a big enough sell to get you to go. Um, this kind of leads me into the second reason that people are talking about. It's there's been just a general lack of interest in musicals in general at the box office period. Like In the Heights is one of the best reviewed movies of the year. It has like a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. It opened to 11.5 million. It only opened like $1 million higher than West Side Stories did. Now the caveat with In the Heights is that it also premiered on HBO Max at the same time. So there could have been a part of the audience that was like, we'll watch it at home and decided not to go see it in the theater. But that was another movie that like I thought In the Heights was a bigger musical than it was, but I think it's big amongst the people who really love Lin-Manuel Miranda. And
Mhm.
it's not on the level as like Hamilton. It's like something that theater nerds know and love. But mainstream, like the thing about the musicals that have done so well in the past, like Chicago, even Les Miserables, even though that's like was deathly boring, it still made a lot of money. I think people outside of like,
Swept at Oscar season.
yeah, and people outside of like the theater world know it. They're familiar with it. You're familiar with like Phantom of the Opera and stuff like that. I think with something like In the Heights, and I thought West Side Story had more of a legacy like IP thing working for it, but I guess not necessarily with like younger people. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Um,
Mhm. And I mean, I'm sure we're about to get into this, but the Ansel Elgort part of it as well is a little tricky. He plays the main lead male in that movie, and he has some sexual conduct allegations towards him in the recent past.
yep.
And I think that didn't help the movie. I don't know if it hurt the movie, but I don't think it helped.
Right. So I was reading some stuff about this too. Variety wrote a really good piece about like how the studio had to work around what they call like the Ansel Elgort problem. And when all this kind of came out, when the movie was supposed to come out last year, there was like the 17-year-old girl she went on social media, put this all on Twitter, right? Um, said that I don't want to like. I think I'm gonna pull up what she exactly said because I
I think
have
I
it.
have it last year.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I get it right because I do want to say too that this all played out on social media. This girl eventually deleted said post and hasn't come up with anything again since. Um, and then he did comment on it the next day on his Instagram and gave a basically implied that like he ghosted her and said that that was really immature and he shouldn't have done that, but like their relationship, whatever it was consensual, and that he would never assault anyone ever, basically. um a lot of these things with these people, especially with like the stuff that comes out on social media, it plays out on these forums like Twitter and Instagram, right? I mean, I am well aware that you can fake messages. You can make it seem like so and so is sending you something. That was like a lot of the speculation when the whole Army Hammer thing started, because he was like,
Right.
"It's not me, it's not me, it's not me," and then she was like, "Well, I got voice recordings," and he was like, "That's not me," and I was like, "Well, someone's doing a damn good Army Hammer impersonation."
It's not me. It's just someone that looks like me.
So like,
So I have the oh shit. I have the exact thing here. I have it pulled up. So on June 19th, 2020, a Twitter user accused Al Gore of sexually assaulting her in 2014 when she was 17 and he was 20. The quote is, "I didn't think he'd ever see my DM. I was just a kid and I was a fan of him," she wrote in a since deleted statement. She said that she was sobbing in pain and did not want to have sex with him. Allegedly, El Gort had known it was her first time having sex. So that is the accusation. Um,
so
I
when
know
this all
there's no way to prove it exactly because all this happened on Snapchat, but um, it is unfortunate that the film is going through this and that this woman is going through this. I think it's all around a bad situation.
Right. And I want to point out what, just to give a better context of what he said. The next day after this came out, he was 27 now when this is all reemerging. And then he posted on his Instagram and explained that he did have a brief, legal, and entirely consensual relationship with the woman in question, and he ghosted her after they broke up, which, as he put it, was an immature and cruel thing to do to someone. When it came to the allegation of assault, Elgort stated that her description of events is simply not what happened. I have never and would never assault anyone. Now, this is all kind of playing out while they need to get ready. And initially, they like, he's in West Side Story. They're going to have to release it. Now, this was like, I think this all kind of happened a few months before they were going to release it at the end of the year. So there was like a lot of, oh, well, maybe there's time. We can like, it'll go away. And for him, it did kind of go away for a couple of reasons. The movie got delayed a year because of COVID. He basically laid low, didn't really make a fuss. And like they actually pointed out in the Variety article that a lot of people thought that his minimal exposure in the film's trailers was a strategic move by Disney to shift the focus from him to the others in the movie. But then they started like seeing him. He was on Live with Kelly and Ryan. He was on the Drew Barrymore show. He presented at the American Music Awards and was involved in a dozen interviews during the Global Press Junket. He even walked the full press line in New York. So that seems like, okay, they're like, fine, like we're putting him out there. But they said you can see cracks because what's uncommon is that an actor of his stature who's a lead in a Spielberg movie would normally do an in-depth interview to get to prepare for the release of it. They would have like a profile in one of the big like trades about him. He did not do that. All of the junkets that he's done virtually have been with one other actor. He's not by himself. Typically, they would either pair him with her, I would imagine, or he would be alone. But he's been either paired with one other person or with a group. So that kind of prevents you from asking him any awkward questions about it. So like, while it seems like they are putting him out in front of it, like, oh, like it's fine, you can tell they're scaling him back and not really wanting to like.
And maybe they should have honed in on that, and maybe a publicist did want to do that and then he said no, but maybe he should have just been completely honest with his audience and just said, you know, here's what happened. I made a mistake and I'm laying it all out on the line here. And I want you to support my movie. I understand if you don't want to, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I'm not a publicist, but I think that I think it would have really benefited the movie if him and, what's this girl's name that's in the movie?
Rachel's like the lead.
Rachel Zegler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if they would have done press together, just like Zendaya and Tom Holland.
Right.
I mean, they're doing everything together. They're playing games. They're playing the game that you have to play when you're promoting a movie.
Yeah.
And they're I don't see anyone really. I mean, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. I also want to point out too, he was never charged with anything. This all was on social media. Like that girl did delete her post and everything. But in the wake of the woman posting her original story, other women have since posted to Twitter with allegations that the actor made inappropriate overtures to them over social media when they were underage, and supported those claims with screen grabs that appear to support their allegations. He never responded to those new ones, and then nothing really came out of those new ones at all. Like those girls never said anything again, and he hasn't had any of those kind of allegations against him since. His professional career seems fine. Like he's doing a show on HBO Max called Tokyo Vice. It doesn't seem like it's a career-killing thing, but I want to point out, like, I only pulled a few of these, and I'm not saying this is a completely the reason why the movie might have underperformed, but if you're the male lead, and I mean, like, musicals are seen by a lot of women, and like, if your male lead is problematic, then it kind of leads to stuff like this. Like one person put on Twitter, if you paid money to see West Side Story this past weekend, just realize you're a part of the problem. Hashtag Ansel Elgort. And then someone else wrote, I'm toured about West Side Story. I would love to see an updated version with the problematic aspects removed. Kudos to Spielberg and Rita Moreno for fixing those aspects. But the film's most problematic aspect is Ansel Elgort, the actor playing Tony, and he can't be removed. And then someone else wrote, does anyone want to watch a movie starring a sexual predator? They get more pointed as they kind of go
And
on.
that's the thing is like, I've said this in the past, but I'm not for cancel culture.
Yeah.
And I don't think that he should be canceled, although I don't think that these allegations should be brushed under the rug. I think that these are good accusations. I think that they should be looked into. I think that there should be more of a process of that. But I think if he were just honest with everyone and just, I don't know if he should admit guilt or what, but I think that he can't just ignore it.
Right. I think
It's the elephant in the room.
it seems like he tried when it first happened to come out ahead of it. Like when they're making the Instagram post and saying that, like, yeah, this is like, this could easily have been a girl that he ghosted and she got pissed off and she made this up. I'm not saying she did,
Right.
but that could have easily been the case, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, part of me thinks it was smart that he tried to get out ahead of it. But I think the thought between him and his publicist, whoever, the studio, I'm sure I can't see Spielberg not being involved in the conversation. Like, all right, this is got brought up. Like, what do we do about it? I think everyone kind of felt like this would go away. There was like enough time that went by that people would like forget. And the thing is, like with the internet, people don't forget.
People don't forget.
Oh, so like it's there. It's always there. And like I kind of agree with you. Maybe if I'm not saying that like you do a group interview with a cast and you bring it up. Like you do, maybe you do the one-on-one interview and address it, and maybe talk about how you have the support of like your team, the director, the studio. They believe in you. They believe in your credibility. Maybe come out like that, and maybe it doesn't seem like they're trying to just sweep it under the rug.
I mean, Ben Affleck is talking about his sobriety in a profile recently and talking about how if he were still married to Jennifer Garner, he probably wouldn't still be sober.
Yeah, he said he felt trapped.
I don't know if that's something you should say about the mother of your children, but he's being honest in the interview and he's being upfront about his feelings.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a tough thing to navigate, right? It's like all these, there's so many players involved, especially, but it's not just Ansel Elgort. It's the studio, it's the director. There's a lot of stuff. And I'm sure they had to think about like, what do we do when our male lead is like at the center of this? That was my first thought though, like when I rewatched the trailer again, because I was like, did they really minimize his role in it? And like the first trailer, he's in it, but it's not like he's the focus of it. A lot of the focus is on her, and she was an unknown. Like, I think if this
that's the other thing is they have this unknown actress playing Maria, which is great. Yeah. She seems really amazing in the movie, but she's up against an actor that's known for these sexual allegations. So that doesn't really put the movie in a good position.
And also making it weird and problematic is that she's young in real life, the girl playing Maria, because she got this role right out of high school, or maybe while she was in high school. And I think that also probably like they want people not to focus on that too. Like that's what makes it kind of like, I don't know, I kind of wonder what it's like for her to kind of promote it. Like I would love to be like a fly on the wall, like with them being like, okay, like, did you do this? Like, what's going on? Like, there's a lot of things that kind of like and worked against the movie. And maybe it's not just this one thing. Maybe it's just not him. It's not just a lack of interest in musicals. It's not just older people not going to the movies. It could be a combination of all these things. Now, one box office analyst pointed to The Greatest Showman, right? Because that movie opened to 8.8 million, which was around the same time in December when it came out, which was considered DOA at the time, right? The Greatest Showman has like a 50-some% on Rotten Tomatoes, but that movie became like a big word of mouth hit. Like it went from that $8 million opening, and then it just went up in subsequent weeks until it made like $173 million here. A lot of people are comparing West Side Story.
Has a big cult following too.
They were like, well, maybe that can happen for West Side Story. So here's why I think, while I think it will not completely crater over the holiday season, here's why I think that success is not going to be repeated. Like West Side Story made 4.1 million on its opening Friday and made like 3.8 on Saturday. When there's like a drop from Friday to Saturday, that doesn't indicate good word of mouth already. And not
Mhm.
saying that it's bad word of mouth. That means that it's just not breaking out beyond the audience that wants to see it.
Right.
An 8.8 million opening weekend for Greatest Showman was not that great, but this is a movie that made 2.7 million on the Friday. That means the rest of the weekend got significantly better. And
Mhm.
and then, like, you know, someone else pointed out that The Greatest Showman had the advantage of being something fresh and new and young. It wasn't just like a musical for like older audiences. It was huge. It had huge radio airplay for its soundtrack. There was like a lot of
Mhm.
stuff that went into The Greatest Showman being successful. I don't think West Side Story has that same look.
Yeah, and if you think about it, next weekend we have Spider-Man, Tender Bar, Rico, and competing against West Side Story too. And it's like all these movies are coming out, and yeah, it's the holidays. People are going to be off work. People are going to be with their families, going to see movies. So we'll just have to see. But there's a lot of competition in the box office this weekend.
Yeah, and then even after that, you got The Matrix on the 22nd. It like, and the thing is, like, when all these other movies are
Mhm.
coming out, if another movie is underperforming, it gives up
It's
its,
going to keep underperforming.
yeah, and it gives up its screens because like they're like, hey, this movie's not doing well. We're gonna like put more showings of Spider-Man in here. We're gonna put more,
Yeah.
yeah, like why are we giving up our good screens to something that's not doing that well? I mean, it will be interesting to see how it does this weekend. I mean, Spider-Man and that have a different audience, right? It's not gonna, there's not gonna be so much of an overlap. It's just gonna be a matter of that the younger audience just isn't responding to West Side Story, and it could happen where like when one of the guys at Deadline said like they probably should have opened this closer to Christmas instead of this particular weekend because they could have taken advantage of like the Christmas, like every movie gets like usually gets a Christmas bump where it's like, you know, like the leading up to Christmas Day. Christmas Day is a huge day, even though it's Christmas. A lot of people go to the movies, and then most movies play well until after like New Year's Day because everyone's off work, no one's in school, and they
Mhm.
said West Side Story would have benefited from opening closer to Christmas, not the week before Spider-Man. And I kind of
I agree with
I
that.
don't know why they didn't do that either. Um,
Yeah.
unless they thought like, oh, let's get in ahead of the game and like gross as much as we can before, you know, these bigger movies come out. But it just, I don't know, like Disney should be. I expect them to be smarter than that though. Like I know this is like a 20th century release. It's not like a Disney movie, but like it's still like that's what they merged with, and that's what they have. Like I would just imagine that they would have been smarter about how to put this one out there. And knowing, I mean, unless they didn't know that
Yeah.
it's gonna get awards attention, like it could get a bump too, because it's getting early awards attention already. Like I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if it gets nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. Um, you
That
know,
would be interesting if it did, because that would literally prove that it's Steven Spielberg effect and not not what everyone really wants to see,
right.
you know?
Exactly. But we'll have to wait
That
and
would prove exactly my point.
see. Before we get into some of these nominations, I wanted to talk a little bit about this is another example of a movie that the like so Don't Look Up, when it was the early screenings for it, the initial response on Twitter was like, it's like one of the best movies of the year. It's so good. It's so smart. Like Leonardo DiCaprio is Oscar worthy in it because he has like this, like, I guess like this network level like monologue in it that's similar to a famous one in the movie called Network back in the 70s. Um, there was a lot of like that attention. And I keep forgetting that sometimes I'm a part of those people that gets to see things early. And we tend to be overly excited about certain things where it's like we forget like, yeah, like, oh, we loved it. It was so good. And I kind of was like, all right, this is a late, like, kind of like contender for award season. Good for Netflix for releasing something that might be so good. And then
Who's directing it?
Adam McKay. So,
Oh, Adam McKay.
yeah. And he's, you know, he's an acquired taste for some people. um, so they lift the review embargo, and it's just not like some people are still loving it, but right now I think it's like in the 50 something percent range rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. Um, the big thing against it is that they think its message is very, very heavy-handed. There's like a big like climate change message in the movie, and then you
Mhm.
have people like Jennifer Lawrence, Leonardo DiCaprio, who are especially Leonardo DiCaprio, who is never been shy about how he feels when it comes to that particular issue. Um,
Right.
there's a lot of pushback from it because it's this big ensemble cast, basically telling an audience that like, look at what you're doing to the world. Um, and a lot of people are saying that it's not as funny as it thinks it is, and overstays is welcome. That was another thing I heard. Um,
I'm still gonna watch it.
I
I'm genuinely curious. I mean, I'm gonna watch all of these movies we're talking about, but I'm still genuinely curious of how it is. I'm a big Jennifer Lawrence fan, so I'm excited to see her role. Big Jonah Hill fan, excited to see him in something new. And I think that's why some people are gonna watch it because they're not even gonna know what it's about. They're just gonna say, "Oh, I'm a big Leonardo DiCaprio fan, and I want to see what this is all about."
yeah. Um, I do find it interesting because like we're gonna get into talking about some of these nominations like Golden Globe and Critics' Choice. Um, even though Don't Look Up is getting a polarizing response from critics, it's ending up getting nominated for a lot of like critics like Circle Awards. It's has a pretty good showing at the Golden Globes, has a good showing at the Critics' Choice Awards so far. Not wouldn't be surprised if it gets Oscar nominations too. Um, now I'm speaking on this having not seen the movie, and I probably shouldn't speak on it until I do. But there's a lot of like when it's a big cast like this, and they're all big name actors. Like you have Leo, Jennifer Lawrence, Meryl Streep, Kate Blanchett's in it. There's so many Timothy Chalamet, who is like equal levels Tom Holland famous. Like when it comes to younger actors, they have
Mhm.
all these people in it that would indicate that it's a strong movie. Some critics don't think so, but I think a lot of people are going to think that it's getting a lot of this attention because of its star-studded cast, and not necessarily because of its quality. Someone pointed out to me that Adam McKay's movie Vice was like 60% fresh and got like a Best Picture nomination. Um,
Yeah.
so it's just Adam McKay is just like a lot of people don't always love his stuff, but I mean, I think like
I'm gonna say the same thing. I said it about Spielberg.
uh, is it just as bad as that though? Or I mean, it's just
I mean, it's just like these big names. Adam McKay is a big name that you see at the Oscars all the time and these big award shows all the time. And it, like I said, it doesn't matter what they do. They could literally shit on a screen and it would be nominated, all because Christian Bale's in it or whatever. And that's just how it is. Like that's just the game. And it's unfortunate, but that's how politics work.
Nope, that is the yeah. You're not wrong. I mean, it kind of. Uh,
Thank you for not agreeing with me, but not disagreeing with me.
I mean, like you're not totally wrong. I mean, like because like a lot, like a part of me is just like, no, it's the talent, right? Because someone like Spielberg is talented. It's not a hack, and like Adam McKay, I would say is not a hack either. I mean, like his stuff might be not be for everyone, but like it's. I mean, he's still trying to write like these kind of like deeper, like thought provoking things. Like maybe it's a little heavy handed, and it's not going to be for everyone if you're leaning a particular way.
Mhm.
But like it's still like I would say his stuff still gets you talking.
Yeah, I'm not saying that these movies are terrible. I'm just saying I think there have been better movies that have come out this year.
right. All right. Well, let's get into it. Before we even get to what's nominated at the Golden Globes, here's how much like non-fanfare there was about the Golden Globes. Usually, I've covered nominations for the site. This is my third year in general covering nominations for any website. Two for Joe Blow and one for another one. Usually, when nominations are coming out, like I get like an email and text early in the morning. Make sure you're up bright and early to get these out there because it's important. We want to be the first. Like it's usually like 5:30 in the morning our time on the West Coast. That didn't happen this year. There was no like get ready for this. I didn't even know they were happening
I
on.
mean, didn't Snoop Dogg do the
Yeah, he did it,
nominations?
and that was its own hilarious short film. um, So usually there's more.
That was right there in SNL skit waiting to be
It
made.
was like the way I forgot how he said, he's like, Dennis Villanueva. And he's like, what? Because the guy who directed Dune, like he messed that up. He didn't even say Ben Affleck's name right. Like he messed that up. But there was like very little
But we love him.
So the nominations come out, and usually when the nominations come out, you get like responses from like the talent, like, oh, I'm so happy to be nominated. That also didn't happen this year. And there is a reason for that. The Golden Globe, or actually not the Golden Globes themselves, but the Hollywood Foreign Press Association that does the Golden Globes came under fire. What's funny is that they came under fire after the last ones aired, and there were a lot of jokes made. I think it was Tina Fey that hosted. Was she with Amy Poehler last year? I think it was them that hosted last year, and she
did they?
Yeah, and she made the comment about the lack of diversity in the Hollywood Foreign Press. There was like a joke made, and there was like a lot of uncomfortable laughter, but it was like in the audience you could tell like, oh, she's not wrong. And from there was just like a more of a look into like, oh yeah, there aren't any people of color in the Hollywood Foreign Press Association at all. So that was like, there was like a lack of diversity. And then there was the issue of their just overall conduct and standards, how they were like treating certain situations that were just like inappropriate. They weren't even trying to fix some of the issues within their system. And then it just started where like all these kind of like people started pulling out, like they didn't want to be associated, like HBO, like, no, we don't be associated with you either. All these people that they need there, these studios and networks are like boycotted them. Tom Cruise gave up his Golden Globes as a kind of like I don't want to be associated with this either. And then finally NBC, who has been the broadcast home for
Tom Cruise is such a martyr.
Yeah, he gave up his
I can't.
You're right, I can't.
He's like, I'm sacrificing my nominee. I hate him.
My Golden Globes. And NBC decided to not broadcast it, at least in 2022, until they actually saw that they were making significant changes. They say that they have. I mean, they say it's still a work in progress. But yeah, that's why the nominations themselves were just awkward, because no one that was nominated was really celebrating, unless they were celebrating on their own. They might have been. They're like, oh, I got nominated. But there was no like, usually.
I mean, I think it's cool to be nominated. I think it's something that a lot of people work their whole entire life to do, and I think it should be celebrated. But I do have some stats from the Golden Globes in 2019.
Okay.
So it's a couple years old, but in 2019, that was their 77th year hosting having the Golden Globes. At that time in history, there were only 5 nominated female directors, and only one had won, and that was Barbra Streisand.
Wow.
Out of those 5 women, only 1 out of the 5 were African American, and that was, I can't remember. So that is 385 total nominated directors in 77 years. So 5 out of 385 were women. 1 out of 385 were African American woman.
One.
So that was in 2019, and I think those statistics are alarming.
It is, and it's funny that it took this past year for them to for there to be more attention on it.
And this was also 2019. I remember being a very significant year for women, because that was when Greta Gerwig did Little Women. Maria Heller did Can You Forgive Me? Loren Scarfaria did Hustlers. Lulu Wang did The Farewell. Olivia Wilde did Booksmart. Shinawi Chukwu did Clemency. Maddie Diop did Atlantis. I mean, there's just a list. I have a list here.
Movies were well received. Like a lot of those movies were like,
all of them were well received. All of these movies on the list in 2019, and none of them were nominated. Crazy.
I remember there was like a push like with Hustlers, and the interesting thing, like usually during award season, like the Hollywood Reporter will like print out this like article, and it's like members of the Academy that they talk to secretly, so they don't give their names, but they'll say like why they didn't nominate certain movies. The big issue with Hustlers that year was about the director and about Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer Lopez was nominated for Best Supporting Actress at all the major leading awards leading up to the Oscars, and then they didn't nominate her. And one guy was just honest, and he said, like, yeah, it's good, and she's good in it, but it's not an Academy Award level film, basically talking about the quality and what it's about. Like, it's about stripping, and it's not, and the thing is, it's not really, Hustlers wasn't even about strippers. Like, it's about something much deeper than that. There is, like,
I could scream. La La Land was literally about two people dancing around LA.
Yeah, I know.
I could actually scream. Like,
yeah.
That is such bullshit.
But it becomes like, you know how like there's that term like Oscar bait. Like that's what they eat up, right? They eat up like the stuff that seems to be made for like Academy Awards. And that just, that they feel like it wasn't. I'm looking at the Best Picture. So Best Picture Musical Comedy at the Golden Globes. There's Serrano, Don't Look Up, Licorice Pizza, West Side Story, Tick Tick Boom. And like you said, most of these, with the exception of Serrano, I have not seen. And I can't judge that. But like if I'm looking at the list, I want to throw my support behind Tick Tick Boom just because one, it was great. Be cool to see kind of Lin-Manuel Miranda take home something as well. But the first thing I said when I saw Don't Look Up, I was like, the Golden Globes, despite all the changes they're trying to make, still are like, we want every celebrity not even show up. They're not even going to show up. There's nowhere, they're not broadcasting it. So I don't even know why they're like still like catering to that kind of like dynamic still, but they are.
Yeah.
And with Best Picture Drama, it's a little better here. It's Belfast, which is directed by Kenneth Branagh. There's Coda, Dune, King Richard, and The Power of the Dog. Cool thing about The Power of the Dog.
If you haven't seen Coda, I just need to shout out the movie Coda. If you haven't seen Coda, I cried my eyes out watching that movie. I think it's a very important movie to watch. It's Coda stands for Children of Deaf Adults, and it's a very powerful movie. You will cry. It's beautifully made.
Yeah,
I just need to shout that one out.
Yeah, I've seen. I want to definitely watch it. Power of the Dog is also directed by Jane Campion, so she's also getting,
and she's nominated for Best Director.
She's getting a lot of attention, which is cool to see. You can kind of see with some of the acting nominations in certain categories that they're like, I hate saying this, but they want to try to be like, oh, look at us, we're being like a little.
I was just about to say, with Jane being nominated, I feel like it's just like a petty, like, okay, we nominated one, like, okay.
So like in like the Best Supporting Actress category, there's Ariana DeBose, who's in West Side Story. So you have Afro Latina. Ruth Negga is African American, and then Anjani Ellis from King Richard, also African American. Now, I'm not saying that they're not deserving. They are probably. But when when it comes off of a year where there's like, hey, fix your diversity problem, and then they go like, well, look at what we did.
There's a website that you can go to called ageofthegreek.org, and they kind of break it down for you like by percentage. And it says on their website that the average per women in each category this year was 2.64 out of 5, which is good. It's better. 52% of women over the age of 50 are included, which is also great. Underrepresented groups include Hispanic and Latino. So that's not good.
Still haven't fixed that particular problem.
Still haven't fixed that. Although we are seeing them nominated, it's just still not enough.
Right.
And now it's like too little too late for me for this award season. It's like,
it's hard to get excited for. I mean, like even looking like, so look at the best performance by actor in a motion picture drama. There's Mahershala Ali for Swan Song. I haven't seen it. I didn't even know he was even on the radar for.
I don't think that's out yet.
And then Javier Bardem for Being the Ricardos. Actually, the only person who is not of color or like, who's not a minority is Benedict Cumberbatch. And
if he wins, he's gonna have to just give up that award. Like
so it's Mahershala Ali, Javier Bardem for Being the Ricardos, Benedict Cumberbatch.
Benedict is probably like, can I see myself out of this category because I can't win.
Will Smith is nominated for King Richard, and Denzel Washington for The Tragedy of Macbeth, which is not out yet. I think some people have already seen it because it's screened in New York, but he was also nominated for a Critics' Choice Award too. So that's another one I could kind of pull up. So, but I looked at that category and I was like, oh yeah, they were like, here we're going all out on that category, and like they even did it with some of the shows. I mean, they nominated Pose for Best Television Series Drama. Squid Game got nominated for, and that could be more of like a popularity thing more than like a quality thing being nominated for that. And then, but there's definitely more diversity in a lot of the categories. Not so much in Best Actor in a Motion Picture, Music, or Comedy. Leonardo DiCaprio, Peter Dinklage, Andrew Garfield, Cooper Hoffman for Licorice Pizza, Anthony Ramos from In the Heights. Like, so he in that category. He's the only representative there. And then, yeah, there's like, I know it's just interesting that a lot of these now are like, it seemed like they were trying to make a statement like we're doing something a little different this year.
It's so ridiculous too.
I think
it's also like all white women in Best Actress or Motion Picture Drama.
Yeah, so
all white women, which is great. I think they're all deserving of it, and that's totally fine. It's just like, it's just, I'm just at a loss for words for the Golden Globes. I think they should just end it. Just end it here.
Yeah, you're right. The best performance by actress in the drama is all the names we've been hearing the entire award season. Jessica Chastain for The Eyes of Tammy Faye, Olivia Colman, The Lost Daughter, Nicole Kidman, Being the Ricardos, Lady Gaga, House of Gucci, Kristen Stewart, Spencer. I think you could actually see these names repeated on like the Critics' Choice Awards list.
It's all the same.
I think I mentioned this kind of off of here. I kind of think that they didn't have to do the Golden Globes this year. Like they decided
they shouldn't have.
They decided that they still wanted to hand out awards, so they were like, we want to acknowledge the work. But like, I think in a year where they kind of were working on themselves, the Hollywood Foreign Press, they could have taken a beat for a year and be like, let's come back with, this new and improved version of the Hollywood Foreign Press, a revamp of it. It's hard to be into award season at least with them. I mean, this could be the same with the Academy too. I think the Academy has fixed a lot of those issues that kind of plagued them during the whole like you're so white controversy and stuff. But if you're coming off of this thing with the diversity issue, the conduct issue, like issues with your standards, it's hard to be excited about the awards when it's still all murky. Like when they're attached to like them having a particularly not so great year.
Yeah.
And
I think it's tough because I mean, these people work so hard this year and they are deserving of awards, and it's really exciting for like Rachel Zegler to be nominated for an award. And what if she's a one-hit wonder? We'll never know. Same with Alana Haim.
Yeah.
But it's just tough. It's so tough because I'm so against the Golden Globes at this point. Like, I just don't care.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
It's hard because award season, I used to love it a lot.
Same.
I used to, and I think the older I get, the more that, I've always been told that it's all about politics. It's all about like how much ass you kiss. It's a lot of like goes into it. And I think I always didn't want to believe that because I was like, oh no, but sometimes you want to support a talented performer putting in a good performance. You want to support great directors putting in work. You want to see a movie that is really good, get recognition, but like, it's not always getting recognition for the right reason. Some of them aren't. That's what's made award season, I think the last like 4 or 5 years for me, maybe a little longer, it's just problematic. Like I used to be so excited for it, and now I'm just kind of like, there might be a few names where I'm like, oh, that'd be cool maybe if they won, but like, just like the politics behind it makes it hard to enjoy.
Yeah, it's tough.
I mean, we have to cover it because it's it's big news, and it's by the time we get to like the Oscars and stuff, like we'll be talking about that. Like I said, I feel like they've changed things up a little bit for the better, and I know they've actually their voting body is more diverse now. There's more women. There's more people of color. They actually have a younger voting body now too. It's not just a bunch of, as a lot of people put it, old white men doing a lot of the stuff in the academy. Um,
Yeah.
so that kind of is progress, but
I'm just trying to even see where it's even. I don't even know where to watch this year because it's not on TV.
yeah, they haven't even sorted that out for the Golden Globes. There's no podcast home now. Unless they figure out, can they stream it on? Can they just do it online? Can they like? I don't know. Like,
Yeah, it's like no one wants it. Like it's like hot
right?
potato.
Yeah,
Like
it is like hot potato. Like no one usually, like when these award, like when people get nominated, right? You would be watching like Extra or Access Hollywood, and you would get like Lady Gaga early in the morning, like, oh, I found out like at 5:30 in the morning. I was so excited. That did not
yeah.
that did not happen this year.
Yeah, I didn't see any of that.
They're like, the people are like, I think a lot of these actors are avoiding it like the plague. They're just like, cool, maybe the table with their friends are like, oh, I got a nomination. They're like, yay. But they don't want to like make a big deal out of it because
they're like, maybe Oscars will be nominated also. I don't know.
yeah, I think like they kind of like, they don't want to be like the people like, I guess they want to be like, hey, are we all staying together on this? Do we still feel a certain kind of way about the Golden Globes? Because I don't want to be like the one actor that's like, yay, like I'll keep quiet, you guys all keep quiet. But yeah,
right.
I mean, we're kind of deep into award season. We'll still be talking about it. But to kind of get to the end here, the Spider-Man No Way Home is coming out this weekend. I'm seeing it Thursday at 3:00 because initially all the late time showings on Thursday were all sold out by the time I even looked in my AMC app.
If there's still availability, maybe I'll go with you.
Yeah, I would take a look because there's they opened up more showings too. It's funny. Vinny, our friend Vinny, was telling me that he's going to go see it with the third member of our team, Owen. And I was kind of curious. I was like, "Oh, what seats did you get?" And Vinny was like, "Well, I'm in J like 7, and Owen's in C12." I was like, "You're not even sitting together?" He's like, "Yeah." And I gave Owen like he doesn't have like the best seat because it's like C12. You know that is like all the way in the front, so they're not even sitting together. That's how like packed it is.
You're going to the same one as them?
No, I'm going to a different time. Like I looked when they first put the tickets on sale. Actually, I was gonna like wing it because sometimes you can wing it with these movies when they're big. You're like, yeah, I'll wait till it gets closer.
I was gonna wing it too.
And my brother was.
I can't.
He was like, these like tickets are going. I was like, and I looked in the AMC app and like every showing, like for at least for the theaters by us, we were completely full. I know they have since added more showings though.
What are they doing? Building more theaters?
They just installed more. Yeah, right. I will say they lifted their review embargo yesterday. I heard one publication spoiled something, and I heard it was Variety, and this is not a surprise. They did this with Eternals too. So if you are wanting to be surprised, don't read their review of the movie. But I will say that right now it's at 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. The initial first reaction is not. Some people have called it one of the best Marvel movies ever made. Some people have called it already the best Spider-Man movie ever made, and that it is funny, emotional, like all this stuff. Like they were surprised about how emotional and grounded the movie was, and a lot of people are saying it's a Tom Holland best performance from him, which is kind of cool. Before we go, I wanted to say this is going to be the biggest movie of the year. It's not, and I think it would still be the biggest movie of the year, even if this was a normal box office time that wasn't affected by the pandemic or whatever. I kind of want to guess what it's going to make this weekend. For context, like,
how much did it cost?
So I think it has a budget of over $200 million, and I want to like give you some context about huge opening weekends because a lot of people are comparing this to Avengers Endgame, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that movie, of course, was like the culmination of 20-something Marvel movies and like, you know, wrapping up some threads. And then as we go into this next phase of what Marvel is, that was a huge movie. And it came out in 2019 before we even knew what COVID was, right? So Endgame opened to $357 million during its opening weekend. That is what most movies make. A big movie could make by the end of its run. There are a lot of people that are, I don't know if they're just wild out there. They're like, they think it can get that high, Spider-Man. I don't. There is a lot of pent up, like, we want to see it. I know it broke the, like, Fandango said this is the best pre-sales they've seen since Star Wars The Force Awakens. Like, the most, like, this is kind of like the money that they were seeing before the pandemic and all that. And it's coming out at a really good time in December. This weekend is like, I think this is the last weekend before a lot of people either are done with school and they're starting to go on break. So it'll be able to take advantage of that opening weekend and play very well throughout December. Most people are predicting a $150 million opening for it. That is huge. I want to go higher though.
Do you think it'll break the Endgame record?
No, I think it's too high. That's really high. It'll be hard to do that. But I want to say like 190, 200 million opening weekend is not out of the question.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'm like, I'm basing that on just like the news from like the pre-sales, like, the already having sold out crowds. I think the fact that the reviews are good will also help people that might have been like, as they open up more showtimes, they're like, oh, like on the fence. Like, let's say that you were like bummed that Eternals wasn't that good, and you're like, I don't want to give Marvel my money. These reviews might make you change your mind. That's kind of where I'm gonna
say. What's your final guess? 192.
I'm not gonna waft on it. I'm gonna say 200.
200. Okay. You heard it here first. 200 Gaius. Okay. I'm gonna do less than that, but I'm gonna do more than what people are predicting. I'm gonna say 162.
Well, that's a good, like, that's like an on the dot number, like not 165.
Yeah. I'm playing by Price is Right.
Yeah, okay, 162, and you know what, you could be right, because I guess like 150 is, I can't believe that's the low end too.
And we can also get Owens, and we can get Owens' prediction later on and kind of have a little bet going.
Yeah, that'd be kind
make it a little interesting.
Make it interesting. Either way, you know what, I think, like, however you feel about the oversaturation of Marvel movies and stuff, I think what's coming from this Spider-Man movie is that there's this level of excitement that you haven't seen at the movies in a very long time. I will say probably not since Endgame came out in 2019. As far as the whole like communal experience of going to see something like this and sharing that same excitement of like, you're so excited to see this, like, oh, is Tobey Maguire in it? Is Andrew Garfield in it? Are they going to live up to all
They're all in it.
Yeah, they're probably all in it. Is it going to live up to my bloated expectations? Like, there's that. I was able to avoid. I've been able to avoid spoilers, but I have read stuff from people I know that won't spoil it, and they were saying during their early screenings this week that the crowd was just insane, like crazy. There were people like shouting, clapping. Some people were crying. I guess it gets pretty emotional at certain points.
Oh my gosh.
That was the same thing that happened with Endgame. Like, there was a lot of various emotions attached to it, and then it's kind of cool to kind of, as we were coming in on this year where, like, the box office was kind of uncertain, like back in, like, I think A Quiet Place 2 was the first one to really brave like a wide release as movie theaters reopened, and that movie's like 40 something million opening weekend was like huge. It's like, all right, they want to go to the movies still, but to have it end on this note with this big tentpole like studio movie that's gonna make a lot of money, and kind of like, people are kind of afraid to be around it because they're like I feel bad for the Matrix. I'm sure that will make money, but like it's getting lost in the Spider-Man shop.
I don't know.
But it's exciting to see. I just as a moviegoer,
I'm just looking at movie tickets right now.
Yeah, you're like, are they all full?
Yeah. They should just remove it. Like, I'm not gonna go at 10:30 in the morning, but maybe. I don't know.
And well, I mean, picked a good time because I think the movie's like 2.5 hours. So like, don't want to go too late. Remember that time you saw
Yeah.
you too late. um, but yeah, all right. So we got my two. We got your 162. We will know by the time we record on Monday. We'll talk about it. Hopefully, we'll all have seen it, and we'll kind of see where we landed on that box office prediction. And we will get Owens as well, so he can kind of throw like, I want to take his money. I don't know, or maybe he'll sleep.
We'll tell him what our predictions are, to be fair, so that he can.
We don't want to like swindle our teammate. But yeah, looking forward to it. Once again, it's been great talking movies. Also, it was great talking movies with just Brittany. I do like Owen on here, of course, but like, I'm glad that we can like riff one on one.
Yeah, this was fun. This was how we became friends. So this is like a fun reminder of where it all started.
It all came together. And once again, we are a playlist original. You can find us on any podcast platform that you want to listen to: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. We also upload the videos on YouTube. Usually, but also cool. Playlist is actually taking over that for us now. Actually, telling Brittany this for the first time, and they're just gonna start making like kind of curated like real thumbnails for our videos and stuff, and kind of get those seen a little bit more.
Cool.
I also want to shout out to people who are still being leaving reviews. Someone left one a few days ago. We still have 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, which is cool. And someone said that everyone, basically, I'm like shortening, but everyone has like a defined role on the show, and everyone sticks to that role. And that's what you need to do when you're saying that you are presenting things from like 3 different perspectives. You have to stick with it. Yeah, you will agree on certain things at the same time. That's fine. But like, everyone's role there is well defined. And he said, I am officially listening and subscribed. So I thought that was really cool.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. That's awesome.
So yeah,
I'm glad that we all have like a place in the podcast, and we all we're like puzzle pieces fitting in.
So yeah, of course we want to hear more. So if you want to continue to rate and review, we like any and all constructive criticism, even if it's
follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram, on Twitter. You can find all of these things on our YouTube page. All of our links are attached to our Instagram and Twitter page. I'm loving that more and more people are discovering it, and like as I get more analytics and stuff, like it's been really cool to see, and like we're having a lot of fun doing it, and I hope you're having a lot of fun listening to it. So until next time,
thanks guys.
peace out.
Bye.